Hi, I'm Steve, and that up there is Rio eating a piece of linguine pasta. Today I'm going to review the Digitech Whammy 5 pedal. Now I'm going to do this review from a different kind of angle. I'm not going to take you through all the settings. I'm going to take you through the settings that make the most sense to me, the ones that I've really found utility in, and I'm going to show you the various things that you can do with this pedal. So I hope you enjoyed this review. The first setting we're going to look at is probably the most typical setting, the setting that everyone associates with the Digitech Whammy, and this is the one that takes your pedal one octave up. So let's take a listen. So probably one of the acts that's most famous for using the whammy pedal is Muse, and here's an example of how they use this. The next setting that we'll be looking at is 2 octaves up. Now when I first tried this setting out, I thought it was pretty useless and that I wouldn't use it. Listen to it if you just play it on a note. And it's a bit over the top. But then I realized this is the kind of whammy setting that's used by Korn in songs like this. If you hear some screams while I'm playing from Rio, I'm going to say sorry for that, but he likes to sing along as well, so we can't blame him for that. So the next thing that you can actually use this pedal for is if you want to take the pitch down. So for example, if you want to play a song that is actually recorded with a guitar that is an alternative tuning, which is equivalent to standard but just drop down in every single string, then you can achieve that effect. Now, the reason that we would want to do this is because unlike our favorite rock stars that can have 20 guitars that are all great and all sitting in different tunings at the same time, for most of us that's just not practical. So this is a useful tool that you don't have to retune your guitar every time you want to play your favorite song. So if you look at the Metallica song Sad But True, that song is recorded with a guitar that's tuned into D, and everything is dropped by tone on that guitar. So if we use a standard tuned guitar like this one, of course Metallica doesn't have a parroting in the background, so they're nowhere near as cool, and I'm sure I'm going to get some negative comments for saying Metallica aren't as cool as a parrot, but let's move swiftly along. Rio agrees with me, though I'm sure you can hear. Okay, so now while that song doesn't sound too terrible being played in standard tuning, if you want to get that really heavy effect, you need to put it into D like it is recorded. So we can take this and we drop it by a full tone, which is pretty awesome. And then it sounds like this. Of course, another very famous use of this was for Seven Nation Army, where everyone hears that song the first time and they think it's a bass line, but it's actually being played on a guitar. And the way that Jack White actually achieved that, if you don't know, is by using a Digitech Whammy and making it play an octave lower, just like this. Now before the comments come, that's not the way he actually plays it. I know he tunes the guitar into some fantastic other tuning, but that gives you the idea. But it's also useful because if you're going to be using a loop station, you can put in bass lines without having to use a separate bass, so that's a pretty nifty functionality. So the next functionality we're going to look at is the dive bomb. Now, for those of you that don't know, the whammy pedal actually works on the same principle as your tremolo arm or whammy arm on your guitar, but with the Fender Stratocaster like this one, you can't actually whammy very much without putting your guitar out of tune. So for some of the guys, they use Floyd Rose whammy bars, which actually has a locking nut and locks down by your saddles over here, which means that you can do insane things without your guitar going out of tune. So those guys develop what's called a dive bomb, where you basically take your whammy pedal and you just push it in, and it creates quite a mad effect. But with your whammy pedal, you can do that without having to have a whammy arm. It doesn't sound quite the same, but you can get that effect. So here's your dive bomb. You can bring it back up again. So that's pretty fun. Now we're going to move to the detune section of your controls on the pedal. Now, what detune essentially means is a chorus effect. So when you see detune, just think chorus, which is pretty handy. It means you don't have to buy a chorus pedal and a whammy pedal. Question about whether you want a chorus pedal or not is another one, but you have it if you bought this pedal. So I'm just going to look at the shallow detune effect. I don't think the deep one sounds very good. So with it totally turned on in your shallow position, it sounds like this. And you can actually use your whammy pedal, the actual pedal over here, to control how much of the chorus you have. So as you can hear, we are controlling the effect. Some examples, of course, of how you would use chorus. It's like this. Well, of course. Okay, now we move on to the harmony section. I'm not going to spend too much time here because I found most of the settings aren't very useful to me, but we're going to look at the one that's called fifth, and I'm going to show you a pattern or a strumming sequence that I've come up with, which sounds nice with this. Of that, but there's lots of different harmony settings over here, and we can just flip through a few. But and actually, when you rock the pedal back and forward, it actually changes the harmony setting that you get. So some of you might find that very useful, but I haven't found very much use for it, I must be dead honest. Okay, so I said I don't really like the harmony side that much. That's not exactly true. I do like one setting a lot on the harmony side, and that's the octave setting, which basically gives you double notes. So it adds a higher note, or it adds a lower note. So it pretty much does what electro-harmonics POG does, but you got all this other functionality as well. So just to give you an idea with this one clean, so that's our clean sound. Now if you engage this, it's going to sound a little bit like 12 string, because it gives you the octave up. Now if we drop this to the other position, it's going to give you an octave down. So where this can come in useful and handy is to give you a double up kind of effect. So if we look at this Lenny Kravitz riff that actually does add in a second guitar, you can actually get that effect just with one guitar. So pretty fun. Of course, you can also double up with your note in the bass area. That makes your lead part sound pretty fat. Another riff that I found this is pretty cool on is on this one by Linkin Park. That's all from me and Rio. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please subscribe. Rio, wave goodbye to the people. Good boy! The whammy pedal actually works on a similar... Wave to the people.
Wave?
Wave.
That's strange.